meeting. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube so the public can observe. We want to welcome to both the members and everybody who is online listening to the presentation today. Today's agenda has been provided. Are there any other changes? And if not, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Adam Thomas, so moved.
Okay, I heard Adam. Who else did I hear? Jason? Okay, Jason seconded that motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. And we have before you, you should have before you the minutes of the September the 10th meeting. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, a motion would be in order to approve the minutes.
Jason Winville, I moved to approve the
Thank
minutes.
you, Jason. Is there a second? Brad seconds that motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And now, Doug, it's up to you.
Thank you, Chairman Porter, and we will hop right into it. So where we're at today, at the end of the day, hopefully we'll have 243 out of the 286 plans approved by the task force. Today's batch includes 18 new applications. So on top of the 225 you've already approved, that brings us to 243. We also have 12 districts that are submitting change requests for today. The total for the 18 new ones is approximately $14 million, and then the changes will add another almost $10 million to what's already been approved. So as we look at our chart, previously, like I said, 225 plans, $256 million. The changes today, there's 12 districts that are submitting changes. That will bring their total for the 12 to 63 million. And like I said, that's an additional 9 million, almost 10 million that will be added. 18 new plans worth approximately $14 million. We have 7 plans that are currently under review that have been submitted, which leaves 36 plans that we have not received yet. Of those 36, we have 19 that we know that are in progress. So that leaves 17 districts that have not got into the system to begin working on them. Today's group, as you can see, the majority of them fall in that mid-range poverty, 20 to 60%. District size, most of these are less than 1,000 students, with the majority up to 500 students. We do have 2 bigger districts, that would be Garden and Gary County, that are in there. Of the 18, 16, this represents almost their full allocation as far as the plan goes. And as we look at all of those submitted to date, 179 of the 243 will represent most of their allocation. How the funds are being spent, we're still looking at just shy of 70% going towards teaching and learning activities. As we look at that, last month we talked about whether this category 16, the other activities, where it seemed a lot of the premium pay was winding up. We talked about splitting that out. We're still looking at a couple of different options, how we can do that, whether we look at just look for the terminology premium pay, or as was suggested, how it's coded. So we're still working on that. It's not an easy process to tease out all of those different line items line by line and figure out which ones would fit into that category that we talked about last month, as far as them fitting in that teaching box. So we're working on that, just so you know, but we don't have anything to really present this month as far as that's concerned. For the eligible requests that we have, of the 18 districts, they had about $15 million at their disposal. These plans represent 13.7 million of that. We do have a little over $400,000 in ineligible requests that we're going to present. Expenditures per district, 55,000. That's Hamilton. That represents their full allocation. Very small district. Up to 6 million, which is Gary County. And then the expenditures per student, 300 is at the bottom end, and that's Spearville, and then going up to the $8,000 per student, and that's Chitopa. I thought it was interesting that Spearville's a fairly small district. I would have expected theirs, just thinking about it, that they would have had a higher per pupil amount, but they're a very low poverty district as far as getting these funds. So they're at the bottom end, that $300 minimum that we've been talking about. As far as the eligible planned expenditures, about 73% of these go towards that teacher and student focused groups that we've been talking about. So I think when we looked at it last month, you know, we had Topeka in there as being the big kid on the block or whatever, that a lot of the money was really attributable to them. And so that kind of threw things out of whack. This time we've got our bigger districts, but we've also got a whole bunch of small ones in there that the bigger ones still have a little bit more impact, but they don't have as much premium pay. So that kind of, it all evens out in the end, I think. So just throwing that out there.
Are there questions at this point? I've been told I don't usually pause long enough, so I'll pause another 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, Doug, move on.
Okay, so as we look at the ineligible items, the first one is Stockton, valued at $17,500. They were wanting to pay teachers for teaching remote and hybrid at the same time. And we do not feel that is an eligible expense based on the Uniform Grant Guidance and their regulations governing personnel costs. Basically, it's double dipping. In our mind, you're paying somebody to do the same thing twice.
Questions about this one?
Yeah, this is Jason.
Okay, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, if they were to change this to more of a premium pay instead of salary, it would be allowed, right?
If it was outside of their duty day or extra duties within the day, like having to teach during your planned period or something like that, yes.
Okay, but since it's during the normal day and they were teaching both online and in class, they should get their contracted amount, not
Correct.
above and beyond.
Okay, so it's actually for the same time, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Frank?
Just for consistency's sake, I don't think we've had anything like this that's come up, Doug, of being ineligible that fits the same thing. I get Jason's point of we have approved some premium pay things, but this is actually worded very differently. Is that part of what it is? And
Yes.
it specifically says that they would be being paid twice for the same time that they're working.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is the first time this has come up.
Tracy?
Hi, as a classroom teacher, I would say that if you're teaching simultaneously online as well as to kids in the room, that requires a lot of extra planning because you have to make sure that everything is available online for the kids. So it really does go up far above and beyond. I know last year I was probably working 15 hours a day. I was in tears every planning period because of just how much time it took to do those simultaneously. So I'm not sure that this is not an allowable expense.
So what you are describing is what we have been approving because it is extra planning time outside of the duty day. And so we have been approving those types of things, and we're not contesting that it doesn't take more time to prepare for both. But during your actual duty day, in our mind, you're being paid to do the same job twice.
So would this be a supplemental salary that everyone would just get? This would not be on a day-by-day basis where kids are quarantined, and so the teachers need to know that they're going to have to provide dual instruction?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know if I have those details.
Okay. I don't see any question. We might, for today, I think that we ought to consider what the recommendation is, and maybe if there is a way they could rewrite this because it did take extra time, maybe they could resubmit. Otherwise, I think that it's very important that we follow the federal guidelines. I don't see any more questions unless I missed something. If I have, let me know. I believe there's an, okay. Let's go ahead to the next one, Garden City.
Garden City. Okay, so in this example, we didn't feel that Garden City actually gave us an expense that needed to be reimbursed or there was a loss of revenue. The explanation was that some students were going virtual instead of in person, but the district is still funded for virtual students. It's just not as much as if a student was in person, but to us, there is no revenue loss and there is no expense. They're being reimbursed for the students as virtual, just not as in person. So that was our reasoning on that one. There is no expense to pay.
Questions? Okay, there may be one coming. I see that there's somebody going to be typing a message, so I want to make sure I have that opportunity. But are there other questions related to these two ineligible requests? I'm not seeing any, so let's move on.
Okay, so we'll move on to the changes. Just want to let you know that in the pre-read, there were a couple of mistakes that were pointed out to us. Somehow when we did our copy and pasting into the spreadsheet, some descriptions for items got mixed up. There were actually 3 of them that we found after one of them was pointed out to us. And so I believe that is Salina, DeSoto, and Lyons. So if you see a description that does not match the expense, that's why we've corrected it, but we did not send out a corrected version to the task force. But somehow the formula within the boxes in the spreadsheet got erased or dumped or something, but it didn't work for 3 different items. So we have corrected those and we do have that available, but we just didn't get it out to the task force. As you look at the changes, on the first page, DeSoto is looking to hire social workers, nurses, and then some premium pay. That change will use up their entire allocation. Westgun just moved some money around for summer school and some computers. And then Emporia needed some software, and also premium pay was in their changes. Wichita adding some salaries for tutors and some professional development. Nest City rearranging what had already been approved for some additional training. Salina, more technology and premium pay. And once again, they're just moving items around, staying within their budget. Madison Virgil, their first application didn't amount to very much. So this includes premium pay, some software, and uses up their entire allocation. Lions moving money from different line items to salaries for substitutes, some additional supplies and software, and then Burlingame adding to their original plan for salaries for a counselor and some technology. And then Heston for Chromebooks and hotspots. Those additional items will almost use up their entire allocation. Central Burden for technology and PD. That additional amount will use up their entire allocation. And then Galena move some money around to make room for premium pay and software. And so the chart just reflects if those changes are accepted. We're still looking at almost 70% of our expenses going towards teaching, learning students. So like I said at the beginning, that would be approximately an additional $9.7 million added to the total that's been approved, which will leave 64 million still available.
Are there any questions at this point? Okay, let's move on then. If there are no questions, I'll give another second for questions. Then a motion would be in order to approve the recommendations that have been made today. Is that it?
I so move, this is Bert Lewis. As far as what has been suggested, I would also like to add that if we could contact the one school and have them reclassify that information on the extra planning time to allow for that one, if they submit it.
And if it's deemed eligible at that point. Is there a second to Bert's motion?
Second, Adam Prophet.
Okay, Adam, thank you for doing that. Further discussion? Not all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All opposed? I see no opposition. The motion carries unanimously. Let's talk, I guess we're talking about EANS now.
Almost. So just to kind of round out the timeline for the rest of the year, we think that we will need task force meetings in both November and December. We still have those ESSER II plans that have not come before you all that we need to get done so that that money is not returned to the federal government at the end of December. So we need to make sure we get those in front of you. We do have some ESSER IIIs that once we get through the EANS and the ESSER IIs that we'll start on them. And so kind of depending on the workload, I think you can make a decision about January in another month or so, and we'll see what things look like. But our thought process is once we get past the December board meeting, then we've got the holidays coming, and a lot of people are going to be taking time off. So it may be a little difficult to get a lot of things done prior to a task force meeting on January 7th. But we will do what we have to do to make sure we keep things rolling.
Okay, thank you. Melissa has a question.
Just a quick clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Melissa Rooker. Doug, the timeline that you're talking about for the finalized ESSER II reports to the feds to protect all of the funds, remind me of the date of that, basically for the good of anyone listening. And then the follow-up would be I made note that 17 districts have no sign, there's nothing started, that we at least see that there are a group of districts that have, their application has begun and they maybe just haven't completed. Do you have a read on those 17 districts and what the status is, what's keeping them from having an application in the works?
I really don't. We have done webinars where we have only invited those districts to participate. We have followed those up with phone calls. We are doing everything we can to spur people along. The money was allocated to the state. December 27th, I believe, is the date, and we had 1 year to get it out to the districts. The way we have this set up is that we do not allocate the funds until they have an approved plan. The approved plan doesn't have to take into account their full allocation, but we will award the full allocation, but they can only draw down what has been approved by the task force. When we allocated out that full allocation to them, we've met our requirement of getting it out within 1 year. And so that's why it's important that they get these into us by no later than the middle of November, because that's our last chance to put it before the task force and the state board meeting in December to beat that December 27th deadline of having it allocated. Anything that's not allocated by then goes back to the federal government. Now,
And Melissa,
I was going to say in ESSER 3, we had a different set of rules where we had to allocate it all out within 60 days. So ESSER 2, we had a year. ESSER 3, we had 60 days, which is why we've already allocated ESSER 3. We're just not letting anybody draw it down until we see what their plans are. So.
and I can address the specific question, Melissa, because I talked with one of these districts earlier today. Their original plan this summer that they had submitted was to hire 2 like extra resource similar to Title I type teachers, and they did not get qualified applicants, so they never submitted the application. So I was working with them today to look at other ways, and so they're coming up with some ways, so they're working on getting that submitted. So that would be the type of example that we have heard for sure.
So I appreciate knowing that you are continuing the outreach to try and help guide some decisions that because as I understand Doug's explanation, let's say they, for round numbers, there's $100,000 a district is eligible to draw down. They don't need a plan for $100,000. They need a plan for some number of dollars. And then that will trigger the allocation to them and the permission to spend for what gets approved, but continue working with us. But it will protect the full $100,000 they are eligible for under the formula, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Bert.
My question is looking at the calendar that they presented in the previous slide. It does not show October the 8th, but I'm showing October the 8th as a meeting. Is that still correct?
That is correct. And I believe that's, well, I'll let them answer. I assume it's still correct.
Yes, it is. we were scheduled for October 1st and October 8th. Because the EANS applications are taking quite a while to get through, we thought it was best if we just concentrated on ESSER today. And then next week, the 8th, will be nothing but EANS, and Tate's going to talk about that anyway.
Okay, and Jason,
Yeah, I was wondering, is there a webpage on the Department of Education site that has a list of all the districts that have been approved? And then a separate page of what they've been approved for? I haven't, I was trying to dig today to see what everybody's been approved for, but I didn't see that link. And if you could share that with me, that'd be great. And
You can either go to the state board page and look at the agendas and materials for the state board, and all of the districts, the ESSER materials are published there. And I believe they are also published on the Commissioner's Task Force page.
okay, thank you.
I believe, is that what you just sent us, Tate?
This is a specific one that has a link to each district that's been approved and pulls up what they've been approved for. In that, similar to the PDFs you receive in your updates each month.
Okay, and
I believe that's probably what you're looking for, Jason.
Yep, yes, it is.
it's on the chat. Okay, Mike?
Just to Melissa's question and just a general comment, but KSSA sponsors roundtables, and we have another one in October. And so to the state officials, if there's a way we can help, because we have a lot of new soups and that may not even be part of it here, but if we can help, please reach out and we will.
Appreciate that offer, Mike. Anything else? Okay, let's move forward.
We just wanted to provide a quick update where we are with the EANS 2 program. As of Monday at 3:30, when the application period closed, we had 26 applications that were submitted. All 26 have been under review this morning. 8 went through the secondary review and are being prepared for the task force next week. Our goal is the other 18 will go through secondary review by Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning at the latest. We have a wide range of requests. Many requests are to continue personnel that's been previously approved into the 23-24 school year, along with some other technology software licenses and stuff like that for the third year, and quite a bit of new requests. We've had ranges as high as one school requesting $1.1 million. So we've got a wide range that we'll be going over. We've had a lot of requests that we're looking at to deem the eligibility, and we've also been reaching out to the private schools as much as possible when we have questions and are kind of in that gray area, whether it qualifies or not. So we plan on focusing the whole next task force next Friday prior to the October board meeting on those 26 applications.
Janet,
Yes, Tate, can you remind us, Tate, how many, if we had 26 of the EANS this time, how many applications we had for EANS 1?
72.
Okay.
And it was the poverty percentage
Yeah.
that did that to most of them.
Right. So I guess a similar question to the ESSER money that's not claimed. What happens to that EANS 1 money that was not claimed, and the EANS 2 and the ESSER money? So I think that's a similar question all the way around.
So the ESSER was really quick. That money would go back to the federal government. The EANS money for both 1 and 2, anything that we have a time frame that we can send that money back to the governor's office, because this money comes out of GEAR funds, which are the governor's. At that point, she has the option to spend it on educational areas, which was the same with year 1. In year 1, Governor Kelly chose to focus mostly on higher ed and preschool because of the amount of K-12 funding that was coming out. So once we have a general idea of that amount, we will work with the governor's office and provide suggestions, some of which I've received from the Kansas Association of Independent Religious Schools, meeting with their administrative team, as well as some things we've talked about. One thing we hear a lot is doing something similar to Sunflower Summer and doing that. We would think we would have enough money to easily do something like that, but we would also look at other suggestions to give the governor that would be appropriate for all students, because once it goes back to the governor, it is not allowed to be specifically for private schools. It should be for all schools. So we would really try to push for things that our private schools could also participate in. But again, we will provide those suggestions. We can also work as we know more, and people in the field can also reach out to the governor's office and staff and send their thoughts and ideas, just like any type of thing when you're trying to get support for a program or something. So that's kind of what happens with that. And then she has a time frame to get that money out. And so the
Okay.
quicker we can do that, we don't have to worry about having to send money back to the federal government. It just becomes in a bigger pot. One advantage we've had some people talk about with that is, as you know, in ESSER for the public schools, these funds can help with preschool. The EANS funds cannot be used for preschool. So if there's some possibly statewide initiatives we could do for preschool, in that pot, our private schools would be allowed to participate. So those are type of things that could be helpful. The other thing, when it goes back to the governor and the GEAR funds, is that we don't have that 20% poverty again. I mean, there's not going to be stuff going to specific schools, but all schools can participate, not just the EANS 1 and EANS 2 applicant schools.
And finally, Tate, a question on the 26 applications. Do you have a round number on the estimate request?
No, I have not gotten that yet. Just from the quick glance, I'm guessing between about $7 and $10 million worth of request. So that
And
will
all-
leave a fairly sizable pot.
Yeah, altogether, how much was that pot?
Approximately 25 million.
Okay,
So it will
Okay,
be a
thank-
large amount going to the governor's office.
okay, thank you.
And if I remember correctly, the reason that there are fewer applications is because the poverty level raised for EANS 2 and made several schools that were eligible the first time ineligible the second time because of their level of poverty. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. The federal government set it at 40 and we requested 20% based on that was the average of poverty of the EANS 1 applicants, because many of our high poverty private schools participated in the Paycheck Protection Plan after December 27th, which deemed them ineligible for both EANS 1 and EANS 2.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? If not, I'm sure that the highlight of next week will be our 3 o'clock meeting, Friday afternoon. And I wish you all the best weekend possible. And until 3 o'clock next Friday afternoon, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.